I'd like to talk about Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. This game is interesting to me specifically because I've been thinking more about puzzle design and how it might improve a horror game. And a lot of this has been, thinking about Thomas Grip writes a lot on his blog about puzzle design, and I think one of his statements is that horror games as isn't so much a genre as sort of the setting. Well, not exactly. I don't know how you'd say it, but I mean horror doesn't necessarily describe the gameplay, so you need some sort of gameplay. And his premise is that horror. That puzzles are best suited to that, and with Neverending Nightmares, we wanted to do no puzzles, which again, it didn't quite turn out that way. Certainly, I'd say the inmates are puzzles, and some people approach the like Coming Storm level. They think that's puzzle based, which certainly could be true. But anyway. So I've taken more of an interest in puzzle games, and Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is an interesting one because I played it at E3, and I'm like, this game is way too easy. It's not going to be interesting to me, and I mean the graphics are great. It has a ton of charm, but I thought that easy puzzles might be a turnoff, and but easy puzzles are something that's appealing to me in terms of making a game, because I think if you make puzzles too hard, then people aren't going to figure it out. Then you're going to have to go through a walkthrough, and I'm totally that guy that totally gets stuck on every puzzle and goes to a walkthrough. So Captain Toad Treasure Tracker has impressed me. I'm not 100% through with it. I've finished the first 2 episodes. I'm probably halfway through the third. Inexplicably, it's split into episodes. I don't know if they're going to release it episodically, but they didn't, or at least, I don't know. I bought the physical version. I had some Amazon credit from Christmas. So thank you, sister, for that Amazon gift card. But anyway, I probably should talk more about the actual game. So if you played the Super Mario 3D World, it's basically the same with a few extra elements. And interestingly, a lot of the elements are pulled from the Super Mario world, or I don't know what you call it, because there's already a Super Mario World, but there are elements that are pulled from other Super Mario games, and specifically, well, I meant to say specifically, like Super Mario 3D World, I think. Some of the elements are pulled more directly from that, which, given that it was started as a minigame in Super Mario 3D World, it's not surprising. I imagine it runs on the exact same engine. And, it even has a bonus. I haven't played through all the bonus stuff, but it even has, like, the first level in Super Mario 3D World you can play through as Captain Toad. But if you haven't played Super Mario 3D World, basically the premise is that you're presented with a little world that's self-contained, and usually they fit on a square. Some of them are a little more expansive, but at least in Mario 3D World, they were all on little squares, and you can rotate the camera, and you have to find, secrets, and get to the end. And so in the Captain Toad, there's basically 3 super diamonds or something they're called, and then there's a star. And so I guess you don't have to collect all the diamonds, but the diamonds are basically how you unlock future levels. So just finding the star isn't enough, because a lot of times the stars are really trivial to find. But one thing that I really like about the game and sort of ties into the easy puzzle design, is that for most of the diamonds, you can see them if you look around. There's a couple hidden ones that require some, a lot of camera panning or guesswork as to where they might be. But for the most part, you can see where they are, and then you can formulate a plan how to get them, and then that's not actually difficult. So, I mean, I give up pretty quickly on puzzles, and there's only been a few diamonds where I'm like, there's a couple times where I just don't know where it is, and I'm too lazy to check all the plants, or, really pan the camera around, so I'll look it up. And I think there's maybe one time that I saw where it was, and I was like, I don't know how to get that. I'm stumped, and so I looked it up, and then I was like, I'm dumb, I probably should have figured that out. But so, the obstacles are somewhat varied. Captain Toad can't jump, and he basically has to come up with other ways to navigate the world, and sometimes there's switches, sometimes you have to avoid enemies. They use power-ups from Super Mario 3D World, like you can get the cherry, which basically doubles the number, or gives you another character, so then you're controlling two characters, and there's a lot of intelligent reuse from Super Mario 3D World, which I think is really cool, especially, from a developer perspective. I bet the budget was not, unreasonable. And to some extent, they're passing some of that savings on to the consumer, since I think the game was only like $40 or something instead of $60. And I haven't finished all the content completely, and I don't know, I haven't been timing myself, but I've heard it's, like 5 to 6 hours of content. Which, I mean, it's interesting, again, that I don't want to get into the whole, like, dollars versus content argument, because I'm sure I've ranted on that quite a bit. But certainly, I feel like it's a good value proposition. I'm happy with the money I spent on the game. It was a good usage of my Amazon credit. But I think taking a step back and getting back to the main thing that I thought was interesting that I wanted to comment on the game is the fact that the game can be a puzzle game without being challenging, and that's still entertaining. And this was not something I was convinced with. Like, I played it at E3 and I'm just like, I already know everything, this is easy. What's this game going to offer me? I'm going to get bored really quickly. But the interesting thing is that by rather than a lot of games, they introduce mechanics and then they build on those mechanics and use them in more interesting ways. So if you look at Portal's basically they have a core set of mechanics, and that's it. You just learn how to use them, and then it gets really interesting at the end. And when I was playing Portal, and this is going to sound really embarrassing, but when I was playing the beginning, I'm like, this is way too easy. I don't think this game is very interesting at all. But, obviously when I got to the end, I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome, but I almost wish that they would have had a little less of that beginning, pretty straightforward stuff. But with Captain Toad, they managed to keep it interesting by pulling new elements in. There's mini games where you ride in a cart, and they have some different things where, like, you pull switches and they can do different things. Sometimes they change the layout of the world in different ways, and I mean, I think they really did a good job of creating a variety of puzzles rather than, sticking to one mechanic and then trying to build on that and get it so it's more challenging. And I think, I don't know if anyone ever played the Mobius, or A Mobius Proposal, the game that I made to propose to my wife, but that's a puzzle game. There's a very simple set of mechanics, and I mean, it's certainly flawed. I mean, it's something where I, feel like I could go back and fix up the camera. I think the camera was the weakest part. But anyway, the thing about it is that, there's basically only one other mechanic that we add, which is, I mean, you can hammer blocks up and down, and then there's 2 players. And then the only other mechanic is the idea of like a heart, and getting the heart lets you hammer certain blocks. Now I don't even remember, but I think getting the heart lets you hammer certain different blocks with a more powerful hammer. But again, that was more the approach where I took, the mechanic, and then I came up with, sort of convoluted puzzles, arrangement of the elements, and then sort of scaled it back for the beginning section of the game. But I think, Captain Toad sort of presents a different approach where you just have variety instead of trying to ramp up the difficulty based on your core mechanics. Because the problem with that is that people may reach a point where you can't figure it out. You get stuck because you don't understand the way the game works, or the way the game wants you to think. And Captain Toad, at least, maybe I'm just very, I think like the designers of Captain Toad, but I haven't gotten to that point, and it's kind of refreshing, and certainly I think that's encouraging for the way I've been thinking about puzzles in terms of, future games, and I don't want them to be very puzzling. I don't want them to be very convoluted. I want them to almost serve as sort of objectives. Like, this is a thing, and, you can figure out the way around it. You just have to do the actions. And then that sort of doing the actions frames the horror aspect pretty well. And I had something else to say, but it's totally slipping my mind. Basically that sort of objective framework, I think, gives the player a purpose. It feels like they're doing something or accomplishing something, but they're basically you're not making them, putting up obstacles where they get stuck. Because, the adventure game, I mean, certainly Broken Age was not, was pretty good. There are a few things I looked up, but overall I thought Broken Age did adventure game style puzzles really well. I think like Walking Dead is really great. I mean, even though there's no real challenge to the puzzles, at least I don't even know if they have puzzles. Certainly some, Telltale games have less puzzly things than others. I mean, obviously if you go back to Sam & Max, they're more standard adventure gamey, but I almost think that we can use the framework of a puzzle and sort of abstract out the difficulty and focus on just the idea of having the objectives, seeing a challenge, and then figuring out how to address that. And I think that's kind of the good part of a puzzle, is that when you see what you're presented with and you figure out, oh, this is how I address it, that's the thrill. And I think to some extent, a lot of puzzle games, want to make that as difficult as possible for the fact that, it'll be more rewarding if you figure it out. But I think it'll also be more frustrating to a lot of players like myself. So I think trying to present your puzzles in a way that it's, not tedious, but there's some sort of thrill of discovery as you figure it out. And like I was saying before with Captain Toad, and certainly Super Mario 64 is one of my favorite games, and one of the things I loved about the game is it shows you where the star is that you're trying to get. It says, here's the star. It's not just like a random collectathon where they throw you into a world and say, find whatever you want. It's basically, here's the objective. The challenge is getting to that objective. And Captain Toad is similar, in that, most of the diamonds you can see if you move around the camera. You just have to figure out how to get that. And so, and certainly in my own work, I think The Coming Storm is a good example of that. We showed, the dark stairway that kills you. We showed the boards, and you have to figure out, I can use the candle here, I can use the axe here. And even though it's obvious, where else would you use the candle, where else would you use the axe? And it's set up to be that obvious. I think that structure really worked for us, or certainly, I don't know, that's how I feel at the moment. Certainly, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm totally way off, and if we do a lot of it, people will be like, oh, this is dumb. But I think the sort of puzzles, the objectives, the more gamey framework, without the challenge, certainly can lend itself well to creating the type of game that I'd like to make. Anyway, thanks for watching.